From this little supplement to our hymnal called Lifting Our Voices, Readings from the Living Tradition. And you can find this wherever you buy your books. You can order it. This reading is from former UUA President John Burens and former President of Star King Seminary, Rebecca Parker. And I wanted to begin this meeting by talking about hope, because for me, hope is this tenacious clinging to the good, the right, and the just, and the belief that if we continue to at it, if we keep at it, we'll get there. This is the reading. Hope rises. It rises from the heart of life, here and now, beating with joy and sorrow. Hope longs. It longs for good to be affirmed, for justice and love to prevail, for suffering to be alleviated, and for life to flourish in peace. Hope remembers. It remembers the dreams of those who have gone before and reaches for connection with them across the boundary of death. Hope acts. It acts to bless, to protest, and to repair. May hope be our center in this meeting today. Amen.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I guess I am starting. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name's Ken St. John. I'm the chair of the Leadership Development Committee. This year, the LDC is providing you with a slate of 15 candidates in order to fill 11 open positions on our 3 elected committees: the Board of Trustees, the Leadership Development Committee, and the Special Funds Committee. Each of the candidates today for this Meet the Candidate activity will get a 2-minute time slot, and the LDC has formulated 3 questions we asked them to focus on today. The first one is, tell us a little about yourself and how you are currently active at VUU. Number 2, what motivates you to participate in Valley UU leadership? And number 3, what useful skills and experience would you bring to the committee upon which you would serve? We have a grammar expert in the committee to help me with that. So let's see, we're not going to have any Q&A. There's not, we didn't think that would work well, but we encourage you to read the bios of each of the candidates, which you can find a link to in the weekly happenings bulletin. And you can also get to from the top of the website under the happenings. Also, if you have specific questions for specific candidates, feel free to contact them directly. You should be able to find their contact information in the church directory. 2 more quick things before we get started. First, something about me. My mother's maiden name is Zwedo. That's spelled Z-W. I always thought it was a terrible injustice that Zwedos always go last. So that's why today we're presenting the candidates in reverse alphabetical order by the committee that we're working them, that they're running for. Finally, one more thing, the 11, that sounds like a lot of open positions, and it is. 2 of them are to fill vacancies that were created when an elected member of a committee resigned during the past year. According to the bylaws, the board appoints a replacement, but if an election occurs before the term would have ended, it's up to the congregation now to vote to accept that appointment. So very much like the situation Martha McSally's in this year. She was appointed, now she has to run and get elected to finish the term that she was appointed to. So those 2 people we have on the Leadership Development Committee, Rosalind Huggins. Right now we have a vacancy that didn't get filled, so we have identified Rosalind as the one we wish to have fill that vacancy. And that will mean she'll own the vacancy. People who fill the vacancy then will just have 1 more year left on that term. And then we hope to see them run again this time next year for a regular 2-year term. So the second one is on the Board of Trustees, and that is Mary Wolfe Francis, who was appointed by the board and is now running for being elected to that appointment. Also, since she's got that W in her initials, she's the first presenter. So I'd like to turn it over to Mary right now. Give wiggle fingers for Mary as we unmute her.
Thank you, Ken. And I so appreciate you going backwards in the alphabet. That's been my story for my entire life. Thank you so much for letting me speak for a few minutes. I'm really excited to be here today. I am a fairly new member to VUU, and after joining the congregation, I immediately jumped into a committee, and that would be the Capital Campaign Committee, which was an incredible education about VUU and the culture of VUU. And I got to meet the most amazing people and leaders in this organization, in this congregation. So I just really, it was the best way for me to really jump in the deep end here. My motivation for belonging to being a member at VUU is that I am a very strong proponent of social justice, and that's been shown throughout my years, raising my kids, starting neighborhood associations. I'm a community organizer around several issues that have cropped up in my community. My whole mantra is to make my corner of the world a better place, and I hope that will be the case here at VUU. A little bit about my professional experience or my professional background. I'm a teacher by trade, but I did get a master's degree in business back in '96. And then I used that to start a consulting business around business education partnerships, which I ran for 15 years. That led me into many different areas such as economic development, business development, community outreach, and lots of different things. But today I've landed as a director of development at ICM Food and Clothing Bank in downtown Phoenix. So my experience is vast. I've been on several boards and commissions, including the Tempe Municipal Arts Commission, the State Career and Technical Education Commission, as well as smaller nonprofit boards. So I'd be more than happy to bring that experience to VUU as I would continue to serve on the board, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Oh, that was exactly 2 minutes. Nicely done.
I'm pretty good at this, I'm just going to say.
Good. Our next candidate is Pam Swan. Pam, are you ready? Let's wiggle our fingers.
There we go. There we go. Hi. So I'm Pam Swan. I've been on member of VUU for about 10 years. And without having to go through my whole bio again, just the basics that I've done at VUU. I was active as a committee member when they had the Heart and Hand auction, and then it morphed into the fund committee, the fund auction committee, and I'm the table coordinator, so I get to put all the tablecloths together and organize all the signage and the colors and all of that. I was also a member of the Green Sanctuary group, and it's continuing with the Adopt a Road highway cleanup, so I still do that twice a year and look for volunteers, so I've been involved with that. That started in 2008, and so we've been able to keep that going, so hopefully that'll keep going. I see leadership in VUU as an opportunity for me to give back to the community, and I feel leadership is a service that I can provide. I'm currently winding down some leadership that I've been doing. I've had lots of roles in leadership at University, Arizona State University over the last 20 plus years. I've been a chair of the department, I've been a director of the school, those kinds of things. And it's time for me to put my hat in the ring. I'm going to be retiring from there, not really soon, but pretty soon. And I'm trying to wind down those kinds of leadership things. And I want to put my hat in the ring to be, to do what I can for UU and for the congregation. And what skills and experience could I bring? I understand that being on a congregational board is completely different than academics, and that's probably good because I've never done this before in terms of the congregation, so I don't have a preconceived notion, but I know that I have people skills and skills running and working with community, with committees, and understanding how to develop cohesion and foster good relations with groups, and even when you're dealing with difficult problems. And I feel like that's an important thing for any kind of leadership position. And also, I have a lot of energy and creative juices growing right now, and I'm innovative. I like to work problems, and obviously, obviously, the kinds of problems that our community has will be something that I'll be, willing to work with and use my creativity for. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Our next candidate for the Board of Trustees has provided his 2-minute slot by a pre-recorded message, but I imagine he's out there in the gallery somewhere, so let's silently welcome Kevin Newman as we roll film.
Good morning, Valley UU. Just to give a brief background about myself, I'm originally from New York and was raised Roman Catholic. I attended my first UU service a few years ago when my wife Sarah took me to UUCP in Phoenix, and I loved the UU message. When I first attended VUU, I found Reverend Andy's sermon absolutely amazing, and the new member circle made me feel very welcome. It was wonderful to immediately get to know several of you. Just a few months later, Sarah and I became members, and not long after, I served as a coming-of-age mentor where I enjoyed participating in the congregation on a deeper level. One of the things I love about Valley UU is the concern for equality and VUU's work in the community to make positive changes. I also love the congregation's support and acceptance of each individual's journey and celebration of our differences, which are all important in an ever-connected humanity that now faces global challenges. One of the global challenges that has most concerned me is the environment, and I have volunteered with local organizations like the Arizona Sustainability Alliance, where I was a vital part of their food computer project. I got to use my engineering background to teach kids in local high schools how to build food computers, where they can grow healthy food indoors under controlled conditions. I believe during these extraordinary times of change, my tech skills combined with my engineering background and outside-the-box thinking will greatly facilitate finding solutions as we adapt to an online community during these times. I also believe it is important for us to adapt as the world around us does while balancing our traditions. I've owned my own company since 2004, and during that time I found I really love thinking about things on a broad scale and applying that understanding into the everyday workings of the organization to accomplish the mission. I would enjoy bringing what I have learned and my joy of looking at things at that scale to the VUU mission. Thanks everyone, have a great day and stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. The next candidate for Board of Trustees is Liz Chain.
This is going to be very short because there's been some sort of mix-up. I've never agreed to be a candidate. It was floated by me, but I'm in the process of moving from 2 houses in the age of COVID, and it's taking a lot of time. So I apologize for the confusion. Well, I shouldn't, but I mean, I'm sorry for the confusion, but I didn't have any part in it. So good luck to everybody else.
Hi, Liz. I'm sorry. I apologize. Of course, I must have had the wrong email address for you. There must have been a problem with contacting you because I have been sending out group emails. So I should have gone for more closed loop on the communications, and I apologize for that. Your bio is online, and I encourage everybody to look at Liz's bio. Thanks very much.
She's not running.
Not running.
No.
Maybe I misunderstood. Okay, thank you. The next candidate's also named Elizabeth. She goes by Libby Bean.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to my little outdoor oasis here on my patio. I wish we could all be together, but it's good to see everyone. A little bit about me. I graduated from ASU with a Bachelor of Science degree in microbiology with an emphasis in recombinant DNA technology, which today that major would be considered biotechnology or bioengineering. After I graduated from school, I decided that I didn't want to spend my life in a lab, and so I began my own business as a professional horse show photographer. After doing that for several years and being fairly successful, I decided that I wanted to participate in the horse shows more than I wanted to shoot them, and so I became a real estate agent, which I did for about 10 years and was a multi-million-dollar producer. After a while, I decided to jump headfirst back into the horse business and bought a farm and ran a buying, selling, breeding, and showing horse business where I traveled the country competing. So I've worn several hats over my career. I'm also a certified bookkeeper, and after falling on hard times, it became necessary for me to have a career change, so I went back to school, to paralegal school, graduated with a 4.0, and am now working as a patent agent where I write and prosecute patents through the patent office. I became a member of VUU about 2 years ago. I was raised in the Episcopalian faith, but in most of my adult life was not active in the spiritual world because I became angry at God after he took two very important people away from me when I was very young. My biological father died when I was 15 and my best friend died when I was 12. I became interested in Unitarian Universalism when I met my dear friend Jim Bennett. And when he introduced me to the 7 principles, it just seemed that it spoke to me. So I started coming to services, joined the congregation, feel like I found a home. But with my vast experience in several different businesses, I feel like I can have a lot to offer to the board. Over the course of my life journey, I've worn many hats. I feel I do have a wide variety of skills. And considering that this congregation has become not only my spiritual home, but a very important and vital part of my life and the opportunities to give back to my community, it's also given me a feeling of home and a large extended family, providing my time and compassion not only to the congregation as we strive to weather the current state of the world, coronavirus, and whatever our new normal is on the other side, but the community at large, along with an amazing new family. That's about it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we'll transition to the Leadership Development Committee, where the candidate with the highest last name initial is Rebecca Riggs.
Signing name.
Hi. Well, yeah, I'm Rebecca Riggs, and I have been a member at Valley UU since 1984. So I have a long history here. I've been involved in lots of different leadership positions over the years, but recently I have limited my participation. I'm in the choir. I'm active with the membership committee, and I occasionally have the honor of being able to be the lay leader in a worship service. My career was as a junior high and high school science teacher. That's a job I held for 35 years before retiring. One of the things that you absolutely have to learn if you're going to be a teacher is to assess the different strengths of your students. Obviously, not everyone has the same talents to bring to your classroom. And every kid does have something that they can contribute. There is some gift they bring. I agreed to run for the Leadership Development Committee because I was hoping that my years of knowing many of you, along with my at least somewhat developed ability of noticing and or identifying skill sets that people have, could contribute to maintaining and furthering the really incredible lay leadership that we have at Valley UU. If I can contribute in that way, I'd be happy to. So thank you.
5, 4, 3. Thank you, but thank you, Rebecca. That was perfect. Next up for Leadership Development Committee is Beverly McCormick, also an incumbent.
Good morning, everyone. How wonderful to see you. And Rebecca, I am so happy that I came after you because you said everything I wanted to say. I too am out of the school system, and it's all about assessing the group. And this is a wonderful group. And Sunday is my favorite day because it gets to be a time when I can interact with everyone. And as you say, notice their attributes and their willingness to contribute. I guess that's the part of it that I get involved with. Because sometimes people don't realize, or they think that once they volunteer for something, they're doing it for life. That's not the case here. What we invite you to do is come and bring your special talent, because this is an awesome congregation. This is an amazing place. It has such great possibilities because we're all thinking about what's right. And I am so pleased and proud to have been in this place for, wow, 20 years. I can hardly believe that. And I've also held a lot of positions. And it's my pleasure to be on the leadership development team now. And I hope it will be my pleasure to continue in that regard because I really love it. Thank you all.
And then number 3 on the LDC candidate list is Lee Laskowski.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee, and I joined VUU back in September of 2009. My mother and I relocated to the Carolinas about 2013 as I was laid off from my job with Wells Fargo out here. After a few years of being in the Carolinas, I was working from home, and we decided, hey, you know what? We don't have to deal with hurricanes anymore, and we can move back to Arizona, which is our true home. We decided when we moved back out here to put out a map, and we stuck a pin where VUU was and drew a radius around where VUU was so we could be back at our church home with all the people that we love. One of the things that my mother has said in the past is, in every church, you should be able to contribute via time, talent, income, and influence. And I am a firm believer in that. I have spent some time at VUU as a member of the choir and the bell choir. I have also been there in the kitchen, coordinating potlucks and food for the Heart and Hand auction and for various cabaret events. I have also in the past spent time covered in paint, painting the sanctuary before Reverend Andy came to be with us. Sometimes the time and talent thing can be a little difficult in being covered in paint, but it's all worth it in the end. I hope everyone can see that this is a place that we all love to be and that everyone wants to spend some more time helping us build the community that we love to reach the community at large even further. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you, Lee. Next up for Leadership Development Committee is Gary Klepser. Gary?
Thanks, Ken. Well, hopefully you will find the answers to the questions in a brief background summary. So starting at the beginning, I was born and grew up in Ashland, a small college town in north central Ohio. I went to Ashland College, now Ashland University, and I have a bachelor's degree in organization management. And then after serving in the Army and followed by a couple of job transfers, we moved to Valparaiso, Indiana, and we lived there for 28 years. Most of my career was in college and university bookstore management. Within the community, the mayor appointed me to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I remained on that board for 19 years. The last 2 years of which were as board president. I was also active in several other community organizations, and that's where we joined our first VU congregation. In December of 2003, about a year and a half after my wife's passing, I moved to LA to be closer to my daughter and her family. I became a member of a congregation there in North Hills in San Fernando Valley. And highlighting a few of my experiences, I was on worship committee, and about a year or so of that, I was chair. I was also treasurer, and therefore I served on the finance committee. And I was lucky enough to be a part of nominating as it was starting to evolve into leadership development. And let's see, it was in, I retired. Yeah, I retired from about 10 years with Sears it was May of 2014, excuse me. I moved to Chandler because its retirement here is a whole lot cheaper. And also I'm not very far away from my family, which is a good thing too. So I've always believed that I've always tried to and believed in being active within my community. And one of the ways I can do that is also being active in my spiritual community too. So currently I'm serving on the finance committee and also a member of the choir. And I look forward to continued service at VUU.
Thanks, Gary. Next, let's welcome Rosalind Huggins.
Hi, I'm, most of you know me as Roz Hawkins, and I have come to VUU through my husband, who's been a member since they were on Warner Street. So he's been there a long time, and I found a home here as well. It's a great congregation. I was not one who really embraced formal religion, but I found a home and a way to really practice my faith at VUU and through the principles that guide us. So I have served on the, I currently serve as a worship associate and on the lay pastoral associates. And one of the reasons that I accepted the invitation to join the leadership committee was because I believe that there's a leader in all of us. Just as Rebecca and Beverly expressed, I come from the corporate world and I was in human resources for a long time. And one of the things that you have to do is to find what people, to find the slot where people can be their very best. I used to tell my children that you need to find something that you love to do and then find someone to pay you to do it. In this case, we need to find the people who love VUU just as we do, and let their light shine. And I think that's part of what we do when we come together to find our leaders. And I hope to be a catalyst for that in this position. So I thank you all for thinking of me, for allowing me to use my gifts and my talents to help support our congregation. I have a Bachelor of Science in Communication. So my favorite kind of joke is that I have a BS in communication and I try to use it well. So given that, I look forward to the opportunities that face all of us. It is a challenging time, but we are up to the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Roz. All right, and our next Leadership Development Committee candidate is Joyce Donahue.
Okay, am I up? So I don't get to see me. All right, okay. The first question is what I have been involved in. I joined VUU in 2015, and my involvement has been rather minimal. I attend services, and I've participated in the fundraising activities from both sides, providing a service as well as enjoying fun with other members. As far as what motivates me, I've recently retired, and it's been a unique experience to be able to have so much autonomy over how I fill my time, and that has been very greatly amplified by COVID-19. But I do feel that the values and the work that we do in our congregation align with what is important to me. And now that I have this time, I do want to become more involved. As far as my experience, I retired from ASU, where I was an academic advisor for a short time and a career counselor for a longer time, both in the business school and most recently in the College of Engineering, Fulton College. And I was there for 23 years. Before that, in my previous life, when I was back in New Jersey, oh, I skipped something. Other volunteer activity. Professionally, I was involved in the Arizona Career Development Association. That is the state association for career counselors. And I was on the board for many years, including 2 years as president. In my previous life back in New Jersey, when my children were smaller, I was a Brownie leader, a Girl Scout leader. I served on PTA, executive boards, and in the role of president. The common theme in all of my work, whether it's volunteer or employment, it's working with others, building consensus, and achieving common goals. And that's what I'd like to do. And hopefully I'm within my 2 minutes. That was something that I learned when I was a reservations agent at Eastern Airlines. And that was our goal for the average time on a phone call. Thank you.
And that was 2 minutes. Oh, I started the timer a little late, but it was closing out. Thank you. Very good. All right, our final contestant for Leadership Development Committee position is Roberta, or you may know her as Bert or Berta Baker.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Since I first set foot on UU property that Christmas Eve in 2000, the place was absolutely packed. Ken St. John brought me a chair so that I could sit down by the fireplace in the back of the room. As the evening proceeded, I thought, how lucky am I to have found this place? It was quite an accident. A Jewish girlfriend and I were driving around looking for this particular place on Werner Road on Christmas Eve day. And when we found it, we both decided we were going to come on Christmas Eve. So that was the beginning of my wonderful, wonderful journey and experiences at VUU. Since we're adding some things to our bio, I want to say that I am still a delighted member of the choir, and for several years was choir librarian. Some of my work history includes 2 years of volunteering at Head Start, which was an absolute joy. Then I did some substitute teaching for a few more years. That was interesting. When I would get a class of senior chemistry or physics, we always had a study hall, and they were very happy. And they said, we want you to come back next time you're offered. In the years following that, I began raising 2 wonderful daughters who were sprightly and active and lovely. All my life, I have loved art and music, architecture and design. In that vein, I became a design drafter and worked for civil engineering for 13 years. When VUU began planning our building campaign, I so wanted to be on that committee, but was not free to run at that time. A few weeks later, the announcement was made that the congregation members could attend the capital planning meetings if they wanted to listen only. I thought, well, that's going to be really difficult. They were not supposed to comment or to vote, but I went to all of the meetings that I could possibly attend. I was absolutely thrilled to be there. And I was invited to join the committee full-time after one of the members dropped out for health reasons, and I gratefully accepted. I feel that my responsibility as a committee member is to listen carefully to each idea and suggestion, then to make a decision that will be the best for the majority of the affected people who will live as a result of that decision. What motivates me to want to participate in leadership development is the value of VUU itself. Our 7 principles make us thoughtful, loving, helpful people, which we experience with one another from day to day in our great community. It would be a pleasure to serve on this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Berta. All right, we're moving on to the special funds. We still have one more committee that we need to elect 2 people into special funds. So we have 3 candidates for you. And the first one we're going to hear from is David Shea.
Say it again.
Have we got David unmuted?
Yes, you have me. So I have been a UU since 1999. I've been at VUU since 2001. I'm a lifelong nerd, a software engineer, and I've been pretty active in VUU over the last 19 years. I am currently serving on the finance committee, and also last year I was on the stewardship committee. So I've been recently primarily involved in money. I'm also suffering from bell withdrawal. Choir is one thing that cannot be Zoomed very easily. So I'd like to get back to ringing bells as soon as it is safe to do so. I participate in VUU for a couple of reasons. First of all, it gives a lot to me. It's helped me grow. It's a spiritual center. It's a place to meet lots of people. I have lots of friends there. It is home. And the other motivation is to be part of something that's bigger than me, that will last beyond the end of my life. So I feel like all the technology I work on and professionally will be gone in a few years, in a decade at most, but VUU might last a few generations. So that's that will probably, what I can do for the congregation in the long run will probably be more important than anything I do at work. My qualifications, I have no professional training in money, but I do know how the congregation works, and I do know something about the congregation's money because of my work on several stewardship campaigns and the finance team.
Thank you, David. All right, next in line for special funds is Joel Sanus, who is an incumbent who's agreed to run for another term.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Sanus. I've been a member of VUU since 2001. Can you hear me, Ken? I'm good. All right. I have my wife, Melissa, is also a member of VUU, and we have 3 children, Celine, Ely, and Fallon. They all grew up and became adults. Fallon's 15, but the rest of them, Celine and Ely, have graduated from all of the programs at VUU, and they're lifelong Unitarians. I kind of came to VUU in the middle of its history 20 years ago, and I was fortunate enough while I was here to meet some of the members who founded the congregation. I remember Bill Wood and Betty Nearing, and really became good friends with both of them. And I think about them and the other founders of the congregation when I think about my service to VUU. My first volunteer position, which is pretty common for new members when they have young kids, was helping out in the preschool age classes. I got to see those kids grow and throughout their time at VUU, and now they are young adults. I've been on the finance team. I still teach the OWL classes. I've been teacher of the coming of age class and went to Boston with the students in coming of age. I went to Agua Prieta to build houses. I served on the board of trustees. That was for 5 years on the board of trustees and 1 year as president. On special funds, what we get to do is see the benefits of years of giving and get to think about the future of the congregation. And I'm a big believer that what counters a sense of alienation is knowing that there are institutions like ours that will carry on after we are gone and that will continue our beliefs into the future. In terms of qualifications for special funds, my first qualification is I've been on special funds, I think 4 years now, so I have a good idea of how it works. Professionally, I'm a civil litigation attorney, and I've been practicing in Arizona for 25 years, which gives me a pretty good financial background and also a background in fiduciary obligations, which is something that is necessary for the people who are on special funds. And I also think my other work with VUU over the past 20 years gives me a strong background to know what the needs of the congregation are and how we can keep the values of the congregation in our next 50 years. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Joel. All right, and then our final candidate of the 15 candidates we're presenting today, the name starts with the letter A, Carl Anderson.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. And I have to say that I'm losing my alphabetical privilege, which is very difficult for me, but I can cope with that. I don't expect much sympathy. I've been a member of VUU for probably since 1995, and we actually came to the congregation through our son, who at the time was going to the Montessori school. And so we began our journey there. We've been very lucky to find this place. And from the moment we stepped through the doors, it felt like home. So I started out, one of the things that people do in the beginning also is I started as an usher. And through the years, I've been involved on many of the committees. I've been on the board, and I was in finance and the treasurer. Currently, I am, my main volunteer activities are with the youth of the congregation in the coming of age program. I help facilitate that, and also am a chaperone on the Agua Prieta and Boston trips. Also involved in teaching the Our Whole Lives program to our youth. And I feel like the support of the youth is very important to being a member of this community. The other thing that I do is I am a part of the lay pastoral care team, which is a way to support the adult community. And so really what it comes down to for me is that this is my family, and we also have made a commitment to each other that service is our prayer. So to me, that's very important. Special funds is a little bit different, as Joel said. This is more of a long-term way of thinking about money, and we have a responsibility for the people who donate to that fund to preserve those dollars and make them available, or make part of them available for unusual circumstances. We've been able to help fund some of the projects that have gone on here that have really helped with the congregation as far as accessibility, communication in emergencies, unexpected emergencies like flooding, things like that. So I was on the committee before, and this will be my second go around. I think the opportunity is really to educate the congregation around what special funds is, and perhaps grow that a little bit more. I have a background in finance. That's where I work right now, in finance. So from that side of things, the fiduciary responsibility is very important, because there is an agreement to those who have contributed to do what's in their intention was when they contributed to the fund. And I would say that it will be a privilege to be back on the committee, and I want to say thank you also to everyone else who's joining.
Thanks, Carl. All right, I just want to make a couple of more comments before we wrap up this part of the program. We will have an election this year. It's not going to be face-to-face, and it's not going to be paper ballots like we normally do, and it'll most likely be electronic, and we're just going to zero in on which solution we want to use, and we'll watch the weekly bulletins for information on that. There will, of course, be absentee ballots available, but we're hoping most people can use the electronic voting mechanism once we've announced what that is and made it available. So you'll hear more about that soon, and I think that's all I have to say. We should move on to the budget.
Thank you, Ken. This is Susan Keene. I am the acting president of the Board of Trustees, and I am here to talk to you about an addition that we would like you to vote on for the bylaws. One of the board goals for this year has been to develop a plan to put youth on the Board of Trustees. We decided to expand our definition of youth and change it to young adults between the ages of 16 and 24. The policy committee was good enough to draft for us a proposed change to the bylaws, because there's nothing in the bylaws that involves young adults. I have a slide. I don't think it's going to get up there, but I will send it to Sue Ringler so that it can be included in the highlights. And in essence, it says that the board shall appoint up to 2 young adults between the ages of 16 and 24 to serve a 2-year non-voting membership but participatory role in the Board of Trustees. These young adults will have to have been a member of VUU for 30 days. And I need to explain that, because for most of the offices at VUU, you have to be a member for at least a year. But young adults cannot become members until they're 16. So it is highly possible that someone could turn 16 in May and be appointed to serve on the Board of Trustees in a participatory but non-voting capacity in June, hence the 30 days. They will be non-voting, but they won't have all of their so-called rights and privileges, which means they can open their mouths in meetings and voice their opinions. They can go back to their constituencies and bring back opinions, and in general be fully participatory. The text of this addition to the bylaws will be in upcoming highlights, and it must be presented to the congregation in June and voted on. That is the additional piece of the bylaws, which will be put in front of you on June 7th, which is our annual meeting after the service. Now, I'd like to turn it over to our congregational treasurer and a host of other people to talk about our budget. Deanne, it's yours.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Sue. Bob Fabre and I will present the proposed budget. And I'm going to start by walking through the numbers with you, and then Bob's going to talk a little bit more about how we came to these numbers and some notes about things that went into them. So I'm going to start with the revenue, and as you can imagine, this is not a normal year. So we have, sorry, I was just checking the chat. We are going to want you all to chat in your questions if you have any on the budget or about anything we've talked about today. When Bob and I are done talking, we'll look at the chat and see what questions there are and do our best to answer them. So, so we're showing you last year's budget, which was $625,000, and our estimate for the end of the year is $590,000. So our income is down in a little bit in March, a little bit more in April, and it's very hard to predict May and June, but we are anticipating being down to about $590,000. We are proposing for next year that our budget is, that our income is $503,000 because it's very hard to determine what is going to happen in these post-COVID days. Now, that's the bad news, or the at least preparing for bad news, I should say. So I'm going to just show you the good news, which is that we got 2 grants this year from the federal government. One is the Sba Grant. It's $10,000. It has no restrictions on it. It's for small businesses like ours. And the other is the Paycheck Program, or PPP loan, which is technically a loan but becomes a grant as long as we use the money for to keep our personnel on staff. So we keep paying everybody through June. And we can also use it to pay our mortgage and utilities. So we have $88,000 in extra income this year. So if we look at our deficit, that gives us about $60,000 to carry over to next year. We also have a member who has committed a one-time family member legacy grant of $30,000. And so in total, we are looking at $118,000 in one-time income. And so together this brings the 2 years, our current year and next year, up to an income of $594,000. And this is how we propose that we spend the $594,000. And so Bob's going to talk to you again about all the details, but these are the expense totals. A couple times today I posted a link to the full budget, and you also received it by email a couple times this week. So you can look at all the line item detail, and if you have any additional questions, you can always send them either to the office or to board@vuu.org. But this is the income total of $594,000, expense total of $594,000. There's a couple dollars left over. We talked about the surplus from the existing year. So I'm going to unmute Bob. He is not on video, but he is here on the phone. So Bob, if you would like to continue, that'd be great.
Can you scroll down to, there we are. Okay. But first of all, I want to say, as opposed to Dan, I am not a financial person, even though I'm on the finance committee. So I'm approaching this from the layman's point of view. These are some of the highlights of the budget process that we went through and how we got to where we are now. I mean, initially, the budget was developed by the finance committee, which they do every year. And even before the coronavirus hit, we were anticipating a deficit, if I remember correctly, around $30,000, which we were struggling with, and then the coronavirus hit, and then all hell broke loose. So, but the finance committee came up with a proposed budget after a lot of give and take. They passed it on to the board. They went through it and realized that there was more work needed to be done on it. And then it was passed on to a special team that included a number of people, including myself, Deanne, Ann Snyder, who's a budget compiler, the minister, and so on. When we finally came out with the balanced budget, we submitted it to the board, which approved it. And this is the budget that was submitted to the congregation, which you've hopefully seen and reviewed, and which we are going to be voting on next month. So what are some of the things that you might notice about this budget? We called it on the finance committee the skinny budget. Skinny being skinny revenues, because that's what's going down. Even now, our pledges are going down. So we figured on an 85% pledge collection rate. And this is a good time to emphasize that even though we're not meeting in person, it's extremely important that you keep up your committed pledges, if at all possible. You know, if you're in a financial position that you cannot do that, we understand. But if it's all possible, please keep up the pledges, because we need them. There's no increase or decrease in rental income because we have great tenants, and the school and Jewish community are keeping up their rent and hope to reopen it sometime. So that was a great breather. The bad part, in a way, no raises, but no termination, no salary reductions. We did have reduced child care for lead teachers during the summer, since we're not meeting in person. But that's the only reductions we made. We decreased some of our sort of discretionary outside dues, including the 25% cut in the UUA dues and cut in what we contribute to UU Jazz and Valley Interfaith. We don't like to do that, but frankly, between outside organizations and our church, we felt it was fair that everyone suffer along with us. If we adopt this budget, we're going to keep to it in the next year. If hopefully revenues increase, people go for the pledges or even increase their pledges, we're not going to automatically switch to raising people's salaries, for example. We're going to keep that money set aside, because at the end of that year, next year, we're going to be in a situation where we will no longer probably have federal funds to rely on. We will no longer have 30,000 gifts from a member of the congregation. We may very well be hit with another deficit that we have to deal with. Maybe not as great as this year, but possibly a large enough deficit. So, but the board will review the budget at least quarterly, if not more, and propose changes if we have to. If revenues really sink, then we may have to talk about staff reductions or lowering salaries. You know, we will avoid that at all possible cost, but that's what we may have to deal with. That's really all I have to say, and hopefully if you have any questions, you'll type them in so we can answer them.
Thanks, Bob. That's great. So we did get a couple of questions, and Andy's offered some responses via chat. But one question was, what is the current progress on the building campaign? And so we are continuing to collect the capital campaign pledges. We, as Andy says, just about every Sunday, we understand if you have new issues arise post-COVID that you're unable to make your pledge, that you just let us know, or if you want to change it. Of course, if you want to increase it, that's allowable too. But we are making no plans for the building right now. The next step would be to hire the architect and move forward. And so we just feel like we have to put a real pause on that. As we were saying on a meeting yesterday, technology is our new home. So we're going to focus on that right now, and we'll get back to the capital planning. The next question had to do with Adobe School rent. What if they don't need their facility, teach online, and stop paying us rent? Well, their plan right now is to get back to school. They teach preschool, and so there are a lot of parents who count on preschool for their children, not just for education, but for daycare. And they're going to be doing some online programs as well. So they are fairly confident. We're as confident as we can be, but we also know that that's a big threat, $78,000 a year. Also, Nefesh Soul, our Jewish congregation that meets, is supporting the VUU decision to use the sanctuary right now for iHelp, and they are continuing to pay their rent, and we will find them space to meet when they decide that they would like to start getting back together again. So we feel pretty good about that. Are there any other questions? I don't see any others in the chat. I hope that everybody will take the opportunity to look over the detailed budget and send questions in if you do have them, so that we can get them answered publicly, either between now and the annual meeting or at the annual meeting, so we don't have to go too long. Does anybody have anything else? Yeah.
Funds for technology to include more music and services.
That's a good question. So we have a music budget. So let me go back there. So we have cut the music budget by a fair amount, but we do have some money in music, and also some in administration that includes some technology money. And as you're hopefully you're aware, the budget can be rearranged, the line items can be rearranged as we move forward. And the question of technology keeps coming up, and we do understand that there will have to be some more investment in some technology. But we've had really great participation input from Katie, our new music director. You saw her husband today. David Barry played the piano for us today. So we have a lot of people working on that, and some volunteers behind the scenes coordinating it as well. Irene is asking if there's a less expensive option for a photocopier, and I would agree. Our photocopier is expensive. We do a lot of color copying, and we probably won't be doing much of that for a while. So I think that's a good thing for us to look into. We could probably save some money. I don't know the terms of the lease right now, but I suspect we're closer to the beginning of it than the end. So Sue says she'll be looking into that. She is always working on ways to save us money. Anything else? Let's see. Faith formation, just directory salary is where. So it is in the payroll. You'll have to look in the full budget to we used to have our ministerial salaries were separate. This year, the music director will actually go into the payroll. We just haven't made that change yet. And so, yeah, if you look in the full budget, though, you'll see what the salary is. And it has not changed year over year, either for the director of faith formation or her assistant.
So let me say real quickly that we have let part-time or the lead teachers know and childcare folks know that after the PPP grant is finished, we won't be paying them until we're back in person using their services again. Those Marcy had those conversations and they went really well, and we're so glad we were able to pay them through June or through the term of the PPP grant. But after that, we'll be reducing that. And to Rick's question about insurance, we're actually using the sanctuary more than we were. The Interfaith Homeless Emergency Lodging Program is using our sanctuary 24/7 to house the participants of their program, which has really been great for them because they can keep it sanitized and and sort of safe for their participants. They've even been able to graduate people out of the program because they've been located, and now they've brought in a new group of folks who have been tested and are ready to go. So we won't be able to reduce our insurance, but we are doing mission-related things with the sanctuary, which is really great. As far as resources for extra expenses, we are working with Ascend, the group in Chandler that sponsors iHelp, to maybe get a little money for increased utilities, paper use, other things like that. They're applying for some grants, and if they get those grants, we'll get a portion of those to help with our expenses.
Thanks, Andy. And to Bonnie's question, the date of the annual meeting is 2 weeks from today, is June 6th or 7th. Does anybody want to remind me? It's 7th, June 7th, 2 weeks from today. Thanks. All right, it looks like the questions are done. I want to thank everybody. I know this is awkward, not being able to raise your hand, stand up with a microphone and have discussion, but it has worked out really well, and I'm just so thrilled that so many of you stayed on for this meeting. Practically everyone who went to church this morning stayed, and we didn't even have free pizza, so well done, folks, and we will see you next Sunday.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Yep.